and welcome to another episode of Mr. Luna's Backyard Science. And in this episode, we are going to take a deeper look into our new topic. And this topic we're going to talk about here, as I get closer, is the phosphorus cycle. So as I introduced to you the phosphorus cycle, I am clearly using a different way to try to explain this by my artistic abilities as we go along through this. A few things I want to point out before we get into the nitty-gritty of the phosphorus cycle is the phosphorus cycle. We're really going to be focusing on phosphates specifically, and how the phosphorus cycle is more utilized in soil and sedimentary rocks than in the air as our other cycles that we've gone into. So hopefully you enjoy it, and here comes the phosphorus cycle.
So our last cycle we're going to talk about is the phosphorus cycle. And this cycle is also just as important as the carbon cycle discussed and also the nitrogen cycle. Except phosphorus is really not going to be found in its elemental form as like the other two. In this case, it's usually found as a phosphate, and it's not found as a gas. So what I have in front of you displayed are different types of rocks or sedimentary rocks where phosphate could be found in. Now, I'm no geologist, so I'm not going to go into the names of all these rocks, but some of these rocks are household items that you will normally see like in your yard, kind of splashed around. Maybe you might find them as landscaping rocks. Maybe you might see them as rocks to be built for your rock wall. And all of these type of rocks do have phosphate in them. And as these sedimentary, again, the key word is sedimentary rocks, as they begin to become worn down, they can form and grow into the soil. And there, once it's in the soil, and once it's in the soil as a phosphate, it's free range for these plants to grow.
So in the phosphorus cycle, all of this is going to be done in the soil versus in the air, as we've seen before with the carbon and nitrogen cycle. And in the soil, we're going to have available phosphates specifically from sedimentary rocks. So as the rocks go through their own rock cycle, once they become sedimentary rocks, the rocks can be broken down and available phosphates can be used within the soil. And once it's in the soil, plants are now able to use those available phosphates to grow. And phosphates are a limiting factor, meaning just like nitrates, if you have available phosphates in the soil, then you'll be able to grow higher. And if you're able to grow, you can produce more sugars or fruits like food. Once we eat the food, we can then use those phosphates that are located in the food for energy, ATP, DNA, and or RNA. And in ATP, it's literally called adenosine triphosphates. In DNA and RNA, it has a sugar phosphate backbone. And so phosphates are clearly a necessity in our energy and our DNA structure. And then once the phosphates, as they're put into our body, you'll then see that we can put things back into the soil in the form of digestion or when species have passed away. And when species have passed away and they get put back into the ground, then the ground is able to reuse those available phosphates and put them back into the soil. Or as the rock cycle continues to happen, we can then break down those sedimentary rocks and again put it back into the soil, and the whole circle starts all over again. And that concludes the phosphorus cycle. And so now we have three cycles that are really important to us. We have the carbon cycle, we have the nitrogen cycle, and we have the phosphorus cycle. And just like the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycle is important because it is a limiting factor. If there's not enough phosphorus or phosphates in the soil, then these trees, these plants aren't able to grow. And if any of these cycles are disrupted, that rose might not be present. So this is an example of the beauty of nature that we get when all these cycles are harmoniously working together.